startup group, and of course you guys are the guys who have a bit more experience, who are the scaling up group. So you guys are the ones who are taking your business from one step to the next step. And we want to be having a conversation tonight around some of the challenges that you might have in doing that, and being able to kind of, go past that, and of course be able to open it up and be a Q&A, so where we're feeling free to ask the questions that we are struggling with right now in our businesses, where we are taking them, and see whether we can find solutions tonight. Okay, all right. And also want to just welcome our admin team. Bonani, Blessing, Tor, welcome guys, and thank you very much for your support. I want to welcome every business person that is on the group tonight, that is certainly making a difference in the different areas where you are. Would you just quickly put on here for me what business you're currently in already? Just put dom care or supported living or whatever it is. I'll give you the next minute, if you're logged onto the call, just to please do that. Just type for me, please, what business you're currently in right now. And if you also just take the same minute to type in if it's dom care and what challenge you are having. Primrose is saying supported living, so you've already started supported living, have you, Primrose? Well done, thank you. Okay, Enika, dom care and starting supported living. Okay, great, Enika. Okay, and all right, well, while you're doing that as well, just put in what challenge you feel that you might be having at that point. Okay, healthcare recruitment plus PPE provider. Well done, Rejoice there. Recruitment from Enika. Okay. Right. Tonight's session, I really just wanted to talk to you about the challenges that you might be having, and also realizing that, on the groups, a lot of you, I've got different questions depending on where you actually are. I noticed that a lot of the questions are around getting clients into the door and around accommodation. Correct me if I'm wrong. And also, Asha is in recruitment. All right, I noticed that. Okay, that's great. Okay, so all right, and I also just ask your questions. Feel free to ask your questions. You can unmute yourself to ask a question, but then we'll also just have a little bit of a conversation, either before or after. Maybe let me pick up one question. Supported living struggling with getting service users. Okay, so that seems to be quite a generic thing that's coming through. That people are struggling with getting service users, and sort of how long have you been in the business, or at what stage are you of the business where you're kind of feeling that the service users at this point need to be coming through? At what stage are you at the business? Maybe we need to kind of go through a little bit of background, as in, because although some of you have already got other businesses, it looks to me that most of you may just be starting supported living, or may be at the point where they're thinking of going into it. Am I correct in getting that sense from you? Then that can also just determine whether I change my schedule, what I had planned with you. Okay. Yeah, Rejoice, yes. Okay, yes. Okay, so you're running existing businesses, but you're thinking of then scaling it up to supported living. Okay. Patience is saying yes. Okay. All right. Okay, that's fine. All right. So, okay. So why don't we start from there? Okay, we start from the conversation from there. All right. So you are the kind of people that would have already gone through the mindset bit, that would have already gone through the back office bit in setting up, your initial businesses, would already have piloted running a business in the different sphere where you are right now. And what you're doing right now is getting to that place where you now need to be developing either a second business, which is supported living, or towards the goal of being a serial entrepreneur, or what you're doing is actually abandoning the first business proposal or the first business project that you're working on now towards supported living. So in that case, what would be important for you to be able to understand, I would is that breakdown of what is involved in supported living. Okay, so forgive me if I'm going to be quite basic with some of the information. I'm going to just take the assumption that we are starting up, although we are experienced business people, but in this particular field, we're starting up altogether. All right, so what you want to ensure is to have an understanding of what supported living is. So if you've already been doing recruitment, if you've already been doing dom care, both of those are arms within supported living. Okay, so those formulate part of what it means to be in supported living. So for instance, recruitment, the recruitment process is the same for supported living, so there's nothing to change there. The dom care element, in as far as delivery of care, support plans, and things like that, the only difference that you're going to do is to be able to amend some of your support plans, where you were looking at more sort of personalization of care, more the washing, bathing, activities of daily living. In that way, what you're doing is you're migrating that now towards independent life skills. Okay, so the one of the major differences between the dom care aspect and supported living is you're going towards independent life skills, contrary to sort of activities of daily living. So it's less about the washing, bathing, feeding, that kind of thing. It's more about promoting independence towards independent life skills and social networks and re-engaging back into the community. Does that make sense? All right. So I don't, like I was saying to the group before, I don't usually like talking to myself because I get muddled up with myself. So I really like that interactive conversation. So I would really just ask you, if you're on the call today, to ensure that you are texting back. We are kind of having that back and forth, so that it makes sense as to what you're actually picking up and what you're not. Okay, so that's the one thing. And as far as your company structures and things like that pretty much remains the same with your company's house registrations and things like that. That remains the same if you want it to be the same business. But what you want to be adding on company's house is your supported living element of things. Okay, so you want to add that on there. And then if you already are using a bank account, whatever, you can either choose to open a completely different bank account, or you're going to be adding that on the same. Those are your internal processes for you to figure out. So I'm not really going to talk to you about all the other stuff, the HR and all of that, because you already are somebody that is in business. So you would understand how those systems are meant to be working. So then the next thing that you want to be doing is understanding that supported living is not necessarily about supported living with accommodation. And that is where people get stuck. And that the assumption is that the only way that you can deliver supported living is with the accommodation element. And that is not necessarily the fact of what happens. So you can have supported living with accommodation, you can have supported living in the community, you can have supported living in someone's home. So you want to be using your USPs, your strengths that you've already piloted in your first business. You want to be perfecting that now, and then targeting it towards a particular client group. And that is specific to your skills, your giftings, your experience. So you don't have to align and do the same business. It's all supported living, but it doesn't have to look identical to the next person. You want to be putting yourself as the stamp, as the USP, all right, and using all of that experience that you've had from the beginning. You get what I'm saying? So I'm talking to you from the assumption that you are someone who's already running a business. If you're here and you're not running a business, can you just let me know, so that the information that is coming to you is broken down in a way that you can understand it as well? All right. Okay. And then what you want to be thinking about now is you want to be thinking about the scaling element. Okay, so the scaling element, the growth of the business, is really more to do with you as a strategist. Okay, so you're morphing yourself from the place of being a clinician or being a manager or being a middle manager, and you're morphing yourself into the strategy zone. Okay, so that's the important thing. And then of course, then when you come back and zone down to the supported living, you are thinking about either your regulated service or your unregulated service. So you may already have a CQC registration from your dom care, and all you're doing is just adapting that to make it suited to your supported living, and then of course defining what sort of supported living that you're going for. Okay. But if you were in recruitment, then you're going to be coming from an unregulated space. And historically, people would go into the unregulated provision of business. But that is now, I think, being phased out quite slowly. And, don't quote me on it, but I think a few local authorities are now preferring providers that have a regulation. So I would say if you're just forecasting, then you really want to be thinking about, being a regulated provider. You're probably safer as that sort of provider, but that's up to you in as far as your business decisions are concerned. All right. And then you want to be thinking about the costs with regards, if you're thinking about the accommodation, you want to be thinking about your costs, isn't it? You want to be thinking about the costs associated. And a lot of people are getting themselves into that zone of getting accommodation, and then, having it dragging on for 6 months, 9 months, and then maybe starting to look for a contract in month 2 and month 3. But by that time, you're either taking money and bleeding your first business and bankrupting yourself, or essentially you're putting yourself under pressure and not being able to do your risk assessments and things properly. Okay, so I don't want to speak to you about things that are not relevant to you, but I do want you to be able to understand what it means and how you scale up. Okay, so that is the conversation that we need to have. So let's get into the conversation, because I want you to be asking the questions that are relevant from the place where you're at, and then we kind of take it from there. So yeah, go ahead please, and post your comments and your questions. Let's see where you are. Okay, so the property first or the service user first, that is always the chicken and egg question in supported living. And I was saying to the group that was before you that in my experience, the property must be the last or midway through your process. Okay, so I would sort out my back office things first, my policies, my procedures, all of that first, and I would also define what type of supported living that I'm doing for myself, and then you have my conversations with the customers that I'm thinking of, and have at least some indication that I will get some work coming through, right? And then, if it is possible, you can actually be on a contract or a spot contract or whatever it is, and then get the accommodation. For the fact that if you haven't had the conversation, the process of having the conversations, I've shared this before with others. I'll give you an example of one contract that we had. The process of being assessed for approval on that particular contract took us about 8 months, right? And then we got the interviews, we interviewed, we put on the contract, and then we got started getting the referrals coming through in the emails, those that come in through every week, yeah? And we would respond and respond and respond and respond. For a year and a half, nobody gave us a client. And we had to be paying for a house for almost 2 years with that particular contract. It helped us that we had other clients in the house that didn't belong to that particular contract. But if you don't have a backup of resources, I would hold off as long as you can on a house. I would identify potential property. I would start the conversations around the properties. I would even start the work around it if I could, but I would hold off signing the final lease that then requires you to be making the monthly payments. Okay, you can do what I call DPSs. Okay, that's different to a tender. There's some local authorities just go through approved provider list. So it's not necessarily a tender. Yeah, you can just be added on the approved provider, but that's after you have meetings. My background was that I was a CPN, I was a CAMS practitioner, all of that. So I put in my my skill set together. Do you get what I mean?
Yes.
And that's the thing that is the most important thing, is about you looking at yourself, Primrose, and thinking about, you've got that background as a community nurse, but what else have you done in your life? Maybe you've done some youth mentorship things at church or somewhere that even you don't even recognize that it's anything, but that is actually something that makes you different to me. Do you get what I mean? Maybe you've done some drug and alcohol things somewhere that is different to me. Do you get me?
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
put all those little aspects together, whether you things that you've done directly in a job or that you've done as part of community impact, and then you put that together as a project proposal. You put that as your USP, and you have conversations with the decision makers in your local area, and they will create a bespoke service for you. That is
Okay.
what happened with us. They created bespoke services for us. So you
Yeah.
don't have to go the route that everybody's going. You have to think outside the box to ensure that. And of course, now you can be able to say, I've already been working in the NHS for X amount of years. And in terms of your case studies, you already have your case studies from your client groups, isn't it, that you've been doing all this time. So
Yeah.
sometimes we look at ourselves and you think, I don't have experience in XYZ, but actually you do. You just don't know how to present it. And that's the difference. So it's not always tender, long and short of your question. Yeah. So as I say, the final decision is yours, isn't it? Because it's your business and how you
Absolutely.
want to run your business. But as I said earlier on, my recommendation would always be to identify potential property, have the conversations, do everything that you need to do as much as you can do with that property, right? Before agreeing to sign a lease, right? So the most important thing that you must do is to be able to know where your service users are going to come from. Having a property means nothing if you're going to have no service users coming into that property. Before you've decided, I'm going to take this house, where are you going to get the people to get into those beds? What you want to
Okay.
do now is to start, now that you're on a DPS, right?
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
you can check now in terms of their referrals. So do some market research on the
Okay.
DPS, right? And see,
Okay.
you know, when they're sending those emails, now you're getting the emails, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those emails that start coming through, check on them. Maybe they keep saying, so maybe
Yeah.
in the part of Slough, they keep
Yes.
talking about a town. I don't know Slough very well, but maybe
Yes.
they talk about, I don't know, Herbert Street or whatever it is as an
Okay.
area,
Okay.
right? So you want to make sure that you're not getting a property where close
Near
or
that.
around to Herbert Street. So
Okay.
even though you're on the DPS, if you then put your property in Elizabeth Way and one referral comes for Elizabeth Way, you wait, my sister, you'll regret it. So it's
Yes, I
about
do.
how you apply yourself to what you have. You know, I always give this analogy. It's no good you having maize meal, a pot, and a cooker. Does that make sense?
I'm
If you
getting
have
it.
maize meal, a pot, and a cooker, when does it become useful? It only becomes useful when you mix the maize meal in the pot on the cooker, isn't it?
Mm.
So if you say to me, is it more important for me to have the maize meal or the water?
The,
Can you see? They're both
ex-
equally important, but which one is first? And which one is the deciding factor? So if you have water and a pot and a cooker, you can never make
mm.
sadza, isn't it? You need the maize
Okay.
meal.
You
So
know the message.
the contract is the maize meal. So it's pointless having a cooker and water. You can't cook
Without the
anything
message.
without the maize meal. You can't cook, my sister. Okay, no problem. Natalie is saying I've currently got properties which I'm letting out. Thanks, Natalie, and congratulations on actually owning your property. So that's actually massive. The fact that you've taken that journey already. So in essence, the supported living will be an add-on to an existing properties and to an existing business in property development. What you want to do is to make sure that you've separated your entities, because most local authorities and CQC will actually discourage. Um, I'm not sure if it's actually illegal, but it's highly discouraged that you're both the property owner and the care provider. Do you get what I mean? Because of conflict of interest and things like that. So your best bet would be either to change directorship on some of it, or that kind of thing, or go down a housing association route, or a very different way that legally both entities don't belong to you. um, or maybe if you're doing your care element, then it's you may not necessarily be the director in the care element of things. Okay, so in my working career, I started quite early on in the NHS. I started when I graduated at 21 in the early 90s. So I was in management by the time I was 25, and sort of worked along that quite a lot and did a lot of community related work. I pretty much worked around all areas of mental health, um, include, there's no area of mental health that I didn't work in as such. And then I did commissioning, then I started setting up projects and service redesign and all of that. But also then in my work in the community, I was very much involved in youth work, youth mentorship projects, that kind of thing. And I never used to align those two things together. I used to kind of think in a way that what I do at work is what I do at work. What I do, at church or whatever is different. You get what I mean? And then, like I do some TV work and whatever at Zimbo Live TV as well. So I used to look at those aspects of me very independent of each other. So what I managed to do is then to put, after I actually had some consultation from other people who are experts in the area, and then I managed to put in all the aspects that I do together and do the purpose model, which I can do with you at a separate time if you want. And then it helped me understand what is different and unique about me. I took that to the local authority and proposed the mental health aspect, proposed the arts side, proposed the community and youth, and that's how I bypassed the contracts. The 16 to 25. When I started with it, the contracts were closed, but my conversation with that particular commissioner, she bypassed everything. Do you get what I mean?
Okay.
And we created a bespoke youth service in the area where we are. So we have a youth mentorship program that then runs after the 16. They then come on and they come onto the charity side. So it really, you've got to look at yourself holistically and have the conversation. So it's not even about contracts being closed or not closed. It means nothing. Those things, don't worry about that. You've got to have enough confidence for you to have an understanding of who you are. And if you sit yourself down with a decision maker and you put on the table who you are, they will create it for you. They'll find a way to create it, whether it's on a spot contract basis, whether it's on a DPS basis, whatever. They'll make it work. But then, of course, in the earlier group, Bonani, who's our tendering sort of expert, was also talking about you being able to go on your council webpage, isn't it? And having a look at what the needs are in your council or your local authority and aligning yourself to that. So your properties might end up being a supported accommodation that is unregulated for COVID or for BMEs, or you understand what I mean? Yeah. So don't restrict yourself to what's already existing if you're finding that doors are being closed. Okay, yeah, if you have the skill set for it, right? And it's a need area, because business is really about meeting the needs and providing a solution, isn't it? That's what we are doing, isn't it? And then getting a resource in terms of that. So short breaks, yes. PA support, the bed and breakfast route, if it works, the asylum route, so a lot of that doesn't even have personal care. You get what I'm saying? So you can actually set up all of those models, and they don't necessarily need to be regulated. For as long as there's no personal care, I understand that they should not, they cannot be regulated. But obviously, I don't represent the CQC, so you would really want to be checking that as well with the CQC for that particular model. But more than likely, they will tell you that they'll ask you if there's personal care. If there isn't, then it's an unregulated service. Oh, thank you. That's excellent, isn't it, to know? Because the outcomes for us are really important, isn't it? It's about us being able to measure the effectiveness of what we are doing, isn't it? So if we're spending 30 minutes together, what are we actually achieving in that 30 minutes? And I was, if you give me the opportunity to say that, it is my greatest honor and pleasure to be here with you guys. And sometimes, I don't know when we'll ever meet face to face, if we will. So I was saying that, our paths have crossed for this time, isn't it? And because our paths have crossed for this time, it is really about adding value to each other, not necessarily about me adding value to you all the time. Of course, by all means, where I do have the information, I want to be able to do that. But the type of leader that I am, and of course our team, we are transformational leaders. So we are all about us as a team. When I say us as a team, I mean us who are on this call as a team, us who are in the business hub as a team, and thinking about what are we wanting to achieve? What are we going to achieve in 6 months, in a year? If we can tabulate and say in a year, these are the type of businesses that we have now. We were turning over 10,000 a month. Now we're turning over 50,000. Then we would have some level of success. Do you get what I'm saying? So I don't really want to give you a grandiose delusion and say to you, oh, you're going to be a millionaire in 6 months, because supported living is a game of patience. All right, you can start the business today and you have 10 houses with full bed occupancy. You can also start the business and have 2 years of not a single referral, but you must be committed and determined not to give up. Okay, be determined not to give up at all. You must not be the kind of person who gives up. You must not be the kind of person who lacks patience. All right, and you must be willing to share information. I'm not very keen on people who like to take and not give anything. And if I get that sense, I don't necessarily gel with that. I believe that as you are learning from me, I should also learn from you. And that's the kind of culture that we'd like to be able to have. I saw those questions coming, Joy. I'll come to them in a minute. I also just wanted us to clarify. Some people, we're not really sure about this £50 thing. So and what it means to be in the business hub. Being in the business hub is a free service. So just being here in the hub like this is free. Okay. We've sent out some introductory emails in the Survey Monkey. Those that send their emails to Survey Monkey. If you haven't had your email, please can you email us at business@lorakfoundation.co.uk. You email us at business@lorakfoundation.co.uk, and you can then be on the mailing list for information and things like that as well. Okay. I don't tend to have a lot of availability in the day. So you might see me not necessarily responding to messages as frequently as I would like to, only because I also have a business to run during the day. I tend to have a lot of availability in the evenings. So if you do put your questions on the groups, myself or the team or whoever is there on the group with an answer, please feel free to respond to that. I will also respond, but most of my responses you'll find are in the evenings or at night, because that's when I tend to work. In the day, I tend to do more of the Lorac healthcare things. So do forgive me if you're looking for me frantically in the day and you can't get me. A lot of the times, even if you try to call me directly, you may not necessarily reach me. You could sometimes, but that may not necessarily be the case. But it's not to say that I'm ignoring any of your calls. I want to engage with you, and our team want to engage with you. That's why we're here. But let's maybe just understand how we communicate, if that's useful. How often do you connect on the hub? I'm on the WhatsApp groups every day. I catch up on every single day. I do check the messages and I respond to them on a daily basis. But my time, the time that I do respond is mainly evenings, okay? And you don't pay to be in the hub, okay? What you will pay for is if you then need specific individual time for a specific subject that you feel like, you know what, I need this one more, and maybe it needs an hour or 2 hours or whatever, then that is what you will pay that £50 for, and the best person in the team will sit down with you and work and help you to support that. And that's what it's for. So the £50 is not a mandatory payment that everyone has to pay. The other thing that maybe can be useful to yourselves who are already here and who already own businesses, we have also the International Business Hub, okay? So then that's also for people who want to scale their business outside of healthcare. So who want to maybe scale their businesses in mining or in property or in other industries that are not necessarily here. And then we also have access to investors and funders and different projects. So that's why it's important for you to be connected in the hub, so that if your business ever comes to a certain point and then you feel that you need an investor to invest in Dubai, then that connection can be made for you. Do you get what I'm saying? Or you want to invest in Africa or whatever it is, or you want to start a different type of business and not neglect that. I hope that clarifies things a little bit. So what I will give you as an action plan is that this week, do one thing, just one thing, is touch your business every day. So from today until the next time that we meet on the Zoom call, I want you to be deliberate about touching your business every day. Okay, no matter how busy you get, go and do something that is supported living related every single day. What you'll find is, as you do that, your mind is going to open up to more questions. You're going to think more. And I really want you to be thinking outside the box. Don't limit yourself in as far as service delivery. Of course, the frameworks are very similar, but what type of service that you're going to deliver, you are going to carry that, right? So purpose to be a transformational leader this week, and let's go for results. Okay. If what I want is just for you to give me a little bit of feedback. I've got some there from Rejoice. And if everyone else was here, if you can just give a bit of feedback, whether today's session is useful for you, if it has answered any questions, or if it hasn't, or if you're still in a fuzzy place, just quickly say that so that we can do a clarity sort of session before we round off. Okay, and we can just make sure that you've used your time wisely. Okay, useful. Thank you. I see that. Okay, useful from Anna. Okay, great. Okay, Anika, that's great. Okay, fantastic. Useful from Heather. Informative from Mother. Okay, great stuff. Okay, so if we feel very useful from Amanda, that's great stuff. Okay, so if we feel slightly more empowered than where we were, the beginning of the day today, then I really want to call us into action for next week. And our action is we are touching our business every day. We are doing absolutely something on a day-to-day. When we meet on the next session, we are giving feedback to say, this is what we have done. The first thing before you actually come on the Zoom call, you must be reporting to say, I did this. If you didn't do anything, don't come on the call. Go and do what you're supposed to do. Then you can come on the next one, right? Okay, guys, my day started at 6 o'clock today. So you guys are like my last lot for the day. So yeah, today we had some assessments to do out of Barra. I had a lot of driving to go and do those assessments for a new house. We started a new house about a week and a half ago. And now we are on 65% occupancy. So after time, it starts to quicken up, in terms of the occupancy rates and things like that. So yeah, so in less than 2 weeks, we're on 65% occupancy, which is great. So I think we can do this thing, guys. Let's put our minds together and let's go for purpose. All right. I am going to log off now, unless you've got some questions. I know I still owe you about 10-13 minutes, but I also don't want to overstay my welcome. And Primrose is saying, I need to want to write a proposal for the local authority. Okay, Primrose, did you guys get the email address business@laurafoundation.co.uk? Check your emails. If you haven't got an email from us, I think Bonani will put it on the group, or Blessing will put it on the group, the business email address, okay? And then just email us, and then we can match our diaries or whatever that we need to do in terms of your needs. Those that want the one-to-ones, or those that actually want the sessions. Yeah, this meeting will also be hosted by our brand guys. Okay, guys, just a big thumbs up to our brand guys, right? Our media guys, who are based in Johannesburg. To has been here with us on the session, and they are responsible for all of the branding. And of course, they will be posting the information as well. All right. Okay, guys. So I'm gonna go off unless there's anything that anybody is feeling is a burning need. Take care. Bye bye. Bye bye.